Hello, I'm Sandrine Venerea, the paramedic school director in Le Mans-sur-Lausanne in Switzerland. Our institution is a training high school for paramedics and a center for continuing education in the French part speaking of Switzerland with over 3,000 participants a year. I came across the validation method at a public conference in 2017, given by an association. The conference was aimed at professionals who worked with the elderly. Given the demographics and average age of our patients in emergency care, it was natural that we were interested in the issue. 60% of our interventions are for patients aged 60 and over. Until 2018, there has been no specific training on how to communicate with elderly patients living with cognitive difficulties. We were forced to admit that treatment was carried out under emergency conditions with patients who didn't always understand our intention and paramedics who had no tools for communicating well with this population and felt frustrated by the situation. We set training objectives. The issues we deal with are emergencies. When we respond to acute situations, which are likely to be serious or delicate, we initially have little time to understand the reason for the emergency call and to provide care. However, we've come to realize over the years of applying the validation method that we win in patient care and compliance when we were able to connect with them. We are convinced that it's more important to take the time to create a bond than to frighten them with our invasive techniques. This method has given us the key to successful treatment. Many paramedics were initially resistant to the method and didn't think they could be applied in emergencies. But then the younger paramedics who had no preconceived ideas succeeded in implementing them, which influenced the older paramedics. The final challenge is to train enough staff to bring about a paradigm shift. We are convinced that this method can be implemented in our emergency professions. It will be important to be able to share it with other emergency professions, such as the police and fire department. It's the first few minutes of our intervention that influences the outcome. Future generations of paramedics are convinced that they are more in the care business than the cure business. And we contribute to this development on a daily basis in our training courses by putting the human being and the heart of his or her relationship before care techniques.
Hello, I'm Vicki de Klerk Rubin, the Executive Director of the Validation Training Institute and the daughter of Naomi Feil, the founder of the validation method. I began working on the book, Validation for First Responders, because my daughter was working as an EMT and often asked me how I would handle situations she came across in her work. These all had to do with connecting and communicating with older adults, usually with cognitive issues. I talked to firefighters, paramedics, and police officers to find out what difficulties they had in their daily work when encountering older adults in general, and specifically those who had some form of dementia. Their stories became the backbone of my book. I know that paramedics don't need all of validation theory and techniques, but they did need to be able to use the validating attitude. I tried to break it up into easy-to-practice building blocks. These building blocks include learning how to center oneself, clear away one's thoughts and feelings, to be open to another person, observing and calibrating oneself to the other person, finding some empathy or at least deeper understanding of what's going on in the other person, using a respectful voice tone, finding a respectful distance or closeness, and finding respectful eye contact. These skills can be taught asynchronously using interactive teaching methods, but the learning is totally dependent on what the learner puts into it. When this information is integrated into an in-person workshop, the learning is faster and deeper. There is more motivation and engagement. And that's why we added a workshop.
I'm Daniel Warinsky, social worker and certified validation teacher. Since 2018, I've been teaching validation to paramedics. I deliver a one-day intensive training for every paramedics at ES Azure. First, this training is offered as part of the basic curriculum for paramedics. Second, it's offered to experienced paramedics as continuing education. So every professional paramedics gets the opportunity to be trained in validation. Every training starts with real-life situations that paramedics experience. By using video material like you see on this slide, role plays and interactive exercises, the participants feel connected to the learning and are more motivated to integrate new ideas and specific skills. The first challenge is having participants understand that there is almost always a meaning behind all behavior. And the meaning usually is connected with fundamental human needs. By discovering that older people, even those living with disorientation, share the same feelings and human needs, these paramedics can begin to find some empathy, or at least better understanding. Once participants have integrated that validation principle, we can move on to integrating skills. The training utilizes interactive exercises to teach specific steps to take in order to approach an older person. Vicki outlined that the building blocks to using a validating approach or attitude. We practice each skill so that it becomes something each learner can use on a daily basis. I find that younger paramedics sometimes are shy in the beginning, but then, as the day goes on, they really get into it. This training challenges many of the preconceptions these young people have of the profession. As Sandrine said, each class helps to change the paradigm of what it means to be a paramedic for more communication that fulfills human needs for every human being.